Part 3. So my best friend and my fiance go on a trip by themselves behind my back. The whole time they were on their trips, I thought he was on a work trip and I thought she was with some dude. Because of the time difference, my fiance kept saying that he couldn't FaceTime, so we would just talk on the phone. The conversations were really short and he was acting really strange. He told me he was on a work trip to London, and because the whole thing felt so strange, I decided to call his mom. So I call her and I'm like, hey, where did he travel to again? And she replied, Aruba. I didn't say anything to her and I just got off the phone. I knew he was lying. And I knew my best friend was in Aruba. I connected the dots and realized they were both on a vacation together. The day that he was supposed to fly in, I showed up to the airport knowing that he was coming from Aruba. And I see them walking out to arrivals hand in hand. They saw me right away, and my best friend literally ran away.
Like in elementary, I was bullied a lot. One day, this girl, we could call her Jenny. Jenny was having a birthday party. So obviously I wasn't invited, so I basically begged for an invitation. And I remember Jenny was like, okay, if you're like my servant for like a week, like I'll give you an invitation. Long story short, I was a servant for a week and she gave me an invitation to her party. This is the best part. It's the best part. So finally, party day came. My mom was driving me to the party. We were going to the address that the girl gave me. So we finally get to the house. The house was looking dead. Like it didn't have balloons, nothing. So I was like, maybe they're just not done decorating. So I go and knock the door. And you know who answers the door? You're never gonna guess who. My fucking teacher. It was my teacher's house. Jenny gave me the address of my teacher, not her fucking birthday party. I just wanted
Storytime about the boy across the street who used to stalk me. So a little background information. My parents and I moved into a new house that was literally 5 minutes from where I used to live. But I went to private school, and almost all the other kids in my town went to the public school. So I didn't really know a lot of the kids in my town. Well, a week after we moved in, our neighbors across the street invited us to a barbecue. While we were there, I started talking to our neighbor's older son, and him and I started to get along really well. Like, in a flirty way. Their older son was a senior, I was a sophomore, and their younger son was a freshman. Well, I kind of talked to the younger son, but he was just like giving me really weird vibes. So for the next few weeks, I started hanging out with their older son a lot, and we would talk all the time. Well, the one day whenever I went over their house, it was super weird. His younger brother kept saying, oh, I think I know you from somewhere. Like, I swear I know you. And
I've always had a good relationship with my mother-in-law up until I was pregnant. My husband's side of the family hasn't had a girl born in the past 100 years. So when everyone found out I was pregnant with a girl, no one believed me. Everyone was so shocked when it was announced that most of them denied it up until the moment she was born. And that's when the horrible comments started. Whenever my husband wasn't around, my mother-in-law would make snarky comments like, I wonder where she got that nose. It's definitely not my son's. I never told him and let everything slide because she's older and she's my mother-in-law. But when I was pregnant with baby number 2, and yes, it was another girl, I told him to wait as long as possible because I know she wouldn't like the news. When she found out it was a girl, she started sobbing and screaming. She was calling me a whore and demanded that I get out of her house. Those girls are not ours. She's a whore, a slut. My son did not make those girls. She looked at me and said, I let you get away with it the first time. I took you in as family. I allowed my son to believe he fathered that brat, but I will not allow it again.
Story time. I babysat a lot of kids in my neighborhood, and there was this one night that I was babysitting a 2-year-old. It was around 10 o'clock at night, so the kid was sleeping, and I was just sitting in the living room. In the living room, there was a big TV, a couch, and then behind me, it was a wall with a giant window. So it was really late at night, I had nothing to do, so I was Snapchatting my friends. If you Snapchat anybody, I'm sure you know that sometimes you Snapchat really fast. You don't even know or look at what you're sending. I was mass snapping all my friends, and then one of them replied 10 minutes later. And he said, who's that guy behind you? And I turned around and no one was there, so I'm like, he's playing a joke on me. But then I get another Snapchat from this friend I had, and she lives all the way across the country. They don't know each other. And she said, I think there's someone outside. So I was really freaked out because I was alone. There was a giant window behind me. Apparently there was someone outside. I wasn't gonna call the child's parents because I didn't want to freak them out, but I was scared. So then I went around the house, locked all of the doors. Sorry, it's a really long story, like for part 2.
Part 2 about my psychotic best friend. So like I said, my sister was like, no, what are you talking about? So at this point, I'm thinking, oh, this girl's really weird. But it gets even worse. She comes over my house one day to hang out with me and goes in my sister's room the whole time. My sister dyed her hair black, so what does she do? She dyes her hair black too. The obsession was like really fucking weird. Anyway, so the one night that Gia's over, yes, I still had her over after this because I didn't think it was really weird at the time. My sister had her boyfriend over, and they were in the living room watching a movie, and the whole time Gia is begging me to go in the living room and watch the movie with them. So I'm like, fine, whatever, we'll do that. We go into the living room, we all sit on the couch, and my couch is kind of small, so like we all had to squish. So she sits her ass right next to my sister's boyfriend. Well, my sister's boyfriend got up and started freaking the fuck out. Well, turns out that Gia was trying to touch him under the blanket. So I told her to leave. The next day I got a whole paragraph of her saying that she just wanted to.
So like about a week ago, this random user started tagging me and they were saying that I won a giveaway or something. And my dumbass, you know, always being a dumbass, I stalked their account and I accidentally clicked on a link on their profile. Obviously left the link very fast because I did not want a virus on my phone, but I ended up getting something way worse. So after I left the link, I started getting really weird text messages that were saying, I know everything about you, this is your address, this is your age, and whatever. Along with that, they kept calling like at 3:30 in the morning every day. So I blocked them because that was very freaky. So after I blocked this number, I realized that someone was constantly throwing random objects in my yard, like band-aids and like safety kits. I was very confused. I didn't know if it was my friends pranking me or if it was this number that knew all of my information now. This is the best part. Long story short, my friend said it wasn't them. So I ended up unblocking the number that knows all of my information and asking them stuff.
Story time about how I catfished my boyfriend. I'd been dating my boyfriend Ben for around a year. We were really happy and he even moved in with me in my apartment. Everything was going great and I thought he could be the one. However, one day my friend Lacey sent me a screenshot of my boyfriend on a dating app. At first, I was hoping that maybe it was an old account. I didn't want to jump to conclusions if it was from before we started dating. The pictures that he had on the account didn't seem to be recent ones. I wanted to ask him about it and I almost did, but I had to be sure that he wasn't trying to play me. I called my friend Lacey and told her to super like him on the app. She's really pretty and they've never met, so I knew that he would match with her if he was still active on the app. After a few days, nothing happened. He hadn't matched or messaged her. I was so relieved that I even bought him a new jersey I knew he'd been wanting. I felt dumb even questioning his loyalty until I got an update from Lacey a few days later. He had matched with her on the dating app and messaged her. I was so mad I was seeing red. I was so close to going into the next room and going off on him, but I decided that I wanted to get back at him in a different way. I called Lacey and explained to her that I wanted to set him up and asked for her login information on the app, which she gave me. This is when things got interesting.
My husband had a really bad headache, so I decided to take my daughters for a walk to the pharmacy to get him some medication. On our way there was a dog who was barking and lunging at us, but we didn't worry about it because he was on a chain. On our way back, the same dog was barking and lunging at us, but this time the chain snapped. I saw a big black mass moving fast towards us in my peripheral, and I just picked up my daughters and ran. My twins are both 5, and that's like 40 pounds each, but adrenaline strength is real. The dog was right behind me, and my daughter on my left was slipping, and I didn't want her to fall and get bitten. We were passing a house with a fence, and I kind of tossed her over the fence into the lawn and kept running with my other daughter. I was screaming for help when someone came over and scared the dog away. I ran to find my other daughter to find she was unhurt, but she was crying and saying I left her, and why couldn't I have thrown her other sister instead? We got home, and my daughter ran to my husband crying, "Mommy threw me over the fence." After telling him what happens, I thought he would understand, but he started saying things like, "What if she got hurt? What if she fell on some glass and cut herself? What if the dog stopped chasing you and jumped over the fence at her?" I was already guilty, and I was like, okay, sorry, I get it. But he kept going, so I finally snapped. He wasn't there, so it's easy for him to say what I should have done. I did it to save.
Okay, I'm so sorry for taking forever to post part 2. I was not expecting this video to blow up. I literally woke up to all of you commenting. But here's part 2. Okay, so basically when I let her into the door, her personality just completely changes. Like, she goes from this damsel in distress to like hyperventilating like crazy. She's hysterical. She's crying so bad. She looks so confused. She's so out of it. And I'm not gonna lie, she was starting to freak me out a little bit just by how she was acting. So I called 911 because she's still saying, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. But in my head, I realized that she's hyperventilating, so she can breathe. So at this point, I'm thinking she's either on drugs or she's like having a panic attack or an anxiety attack. But either way, I call 911 and the operator tells me to stay on the phone with them until the ambulance shows up. So they finally show up. They walk through the door. Pero yo de chismosa, I stayed in the lobby pretending to clean so I could listen to what happens next. They walk in and they finally get her to calm down after a few minutes, and this is when things,
This is why waking up late might just save your life. One day when I was in elementary school, my mom and I both overslept, which meant I wouldn't be ready in time to get on the bus. School started at 8, my bus pickup time was at 7, and it was already 6:40 or something. I was still in my PJs and hadn't even had breakfast yet. My mom decided that today we would just tell the bus driver to go on ahead and she would take me to school, which would give me plenty of time to get ready. It's 6:50, I'm in my PJs eating breakfast, and that's when we hear the bus pull up 10 minutes earlier than scheduled. My mom peeks her head out of the door into the foggy morning and waves the bus on. She closed the door and came back inside, but the bus didn't pull away. There's a knock at the door and my mom opens it to find a man in a bus driver uniform. He explains he's a substitute bus driver because the regular driver called in sick and that he's early because he wanted to get an early start on the route. My mom says she's taking me to school because we woke up late. He gets visibly upset and says he can wait a few minutes since he's already ahead of schedule. My mom says that we won't be ready in a few minutes and tells him to go on ahead. He seemed really angry about this, but turned around, got back on the bus, and left. But at 7 a.m., another bus pulls up to my house. My mom went out to talk to them and came back looking terrified.
Okay, part 2. Okay, so pretty much what happened after that is she called and like she found out that it wasn't my dad. And then she went digging and like she like called my sister to the office and she was like, "What's your dad's phone number?" And my sister was like, "Why? Like, don't you guys have it already?" And I also put the same numbers for my sisters so that way in case this day came, then you know, it wouldn't look suspicious. Well, I don't know what she threatened my sister with, but she scared the hell out of her, so she gave her my dad's number. And so my sister told me whenever she got home, so I went to school the next day. And it was like a surprise party whenever I walked in the office. The dean was there, the principal was there, and my guidance counselor. So I got in trouble and then they were like, "Oh, we're calling your dad." So what did I do? I left before they called him.